Boom. And we are live with another episode of the Brown Water Banter podcast. My name is Jared Seymour.
My name is Joey Cates.
It is. And we got a great show lined up for you. In the studio, we have Ranger John from the Gulf National Seashores. And we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, man, to deal with the wilderness areas, the barrier islands, a lot of cool things from their perspective that maybe you have heard of or maybe you haven't. But it's going to be a great episode. But before we jump into that, we want to thank the people, like we always do, the ones that keep the lights on for us over here at the Brown Water Studios. Right out of the gate, I bet you know who we're going to mention. It's Dr. Robbie Williams over at Southern Magnolia Smiles, man. They are located right here on Washington Avenue in Ocean Springs. You can look them up on Facebook at Southern Magnolia Smiles. That's also on Instagram as well. 2024 is the year to smile more. So when you're ready to book that appointment, just go over to the cell phone there and give them a call at 228-215-1202 and tell them that Brown Water sent you. Our buddy Tyler over at Taylor & Cox Law Firm, man, they specialize in felonies, misdemeanors, DUIs, family law, divorce, child custody, you name it. If you find yourself in need for some legal representation, Taylor & Cox Law Firm has been practicing law on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for over 30 years. Just give them a shout at 228-696-0111. And again, tell them that Brown Water sent you. It's the heat of the summer, as you probably are well aware of, and that means it's usually good boating time and fishing, snapper season. All that's going on.
Yep.
Rocky Brooks over at Sea to Swamp has you covered for your tackle and your apparel needs. He's got 2 locations on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, one in Goshen and one in Gulfport. You can give him a shout at 228-205-3964. He's carrying the brown water gear. He's got rods, reels, tackle, you name it. He's stocked to the gills. So go check him out and tell him that we sent you. Like I said, it's summertime, and if you're ready to get rid of that dad bod and get back in shape, Forever Young Men and Women's Health has you covered. Go talk to Kendrick and let him do some lab work on you, man. Check you out and see if maybe you're hormone deficient. He specializes in testosterone replacement for both men and women. You can put your healthcare in the hands of a professional and get back in the gym and feeling good. Book a consultation with him. Let him go over everything that he can do for you just by giving him a call at 228-363-6623, or you can look him up again, like I said, on Facebook, Forever Young Men and Women's Health. He's got a lot of instructional videos out there, and he's very well versed in what he's doing.
Yep.
And Dewey Do Bugs, I finally got it uploaded here with the picture of the food. They're located in D'Iberville, right across the street from the Scarlet Pearl. If you haven't heard about them, I'm going to go ahead and show you right here. This is what they're working with. That's, I think, part of the Maverick. I don't see the crawfish on there. I know that's got it at times.
That's a little special they got. Yeah.
That little special they were running, Dungeness crab, snow crab, royal reds, and the fixins there. That's a specialty price. So don't, as the market changes, so don't quote the price there. But I just wanted people to be able to see it. It is legit. You will not be disappointed. Go down there and check it out. Dewey Do Bugs in D'Iberville. You can look them up on Facebook as well. Boiled, never steamed. I love the tagline there, and they're doing it right, man. It's a great facility with a killer staff. You won't be disappointed, so go check them out.
Yep, and also check out our app sponsor, Modern Recall. Download the app, stay in touch with everything that we do.
Yeah, that's the Brown Water app, and we had Brad from Modern Recall on a couple episodes ago, so go back there and check that one out. It was a good episode, and he talks a lot about safety. So, John, we want to thank you for stopping by and joining us here in the studio this evening. So we always like to get the backstory first. So how did you end up with Gulf National Seashore?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
How did I end up with Gulf Island National Seashore? So I was down on the Mississippi coast with the military. I was in the U.S. Army. In 2005, I was training at Camp Shelby for a deployment to Iraq.
Okay.
Really?
And we made frequent trips to Biloxi and Gulfport on our weekends off, and we really loved it. And we had several guys that relocated back down here well before me.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Norristown, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Which is a suburb of Philadelphia.
Okay.
So southeast Pennsylvania. And I've, with the military and with the federal lands, not just Park Service, I work for the Bureau of Land Management, for the Forest Service, and I've been all around the country. I've been out west in Utah and Colorado, and I ended up at a place called Flight 93 National Memorial in western Pennsylvania.
Okay.
You guys familiar with Flight 93?
Yeah. 9/11, yeah.
Exactly. It's where the passengers fight back against terrorists. Huge
Went down.
point of pride and patriotism for this country. It's a wonderful site. I was there for 3 years. That's when I got my first permanent park ranger job. And I was looking, I did that for for 3 years, as I said, and that site, you tell the same story all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very emotional, and I loved it. And it will wear you down.
Right.
I think anybody that's worked there will say that it's just it's a place that's just like seeped in that very raw emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was looking to get back and do something more in recreation and wilderness. And I saw the position for Gulf Island National Seashore, and I recognized where it was. It was in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. And I consulted my mentor, who was my boss at the time, the chief there, Mary Jane Hartman, and we both thought it was a good location for me. And thankfully, I applied, and I was really happy to get the offer. That was in 2019.
Okay, cool, man. That's cool. So explain to me, if you're a ranger, what all you connected to outside of Gulf Island National? Is it how does that umbrella work?
Yeah, so really, like to us, when we're in this uniform,
Mm-hmm.
the public considers us all rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, and we're not. We have admin assistants, we have maintenance folks, we have campground staff who collect the fees and things like that. So the actual rangers, there's really two of them at our park. They're both the 0025 series. That's the boring government acronym that they give us.
It's just a number.
Yeah,
It's a number. That's
we
all you
literally
are.
are. When you write it
Yeah.
down, it's like GS 005 0025.
With your military background, I'm sure you're familiar with all that kind of stuff, with the acronyms and the labeling, right?
It's a nice transition, and I feel like, not to go off too far on that, but I feel like the government offers military preference, and that's one of the ways I got in.
Right.
And some people, kind of like scoff at that, but it is like it's a nice transition because you get into the National Park Service is very kind of paramilitary.
Right.
And,
Right.
it's linked to its history. The first park rangers were soldiers. So you come into this and you're like, I speak this language.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I love the outdoors. I speak this language. I think this is going to work out. But the two rangers there are visitor resource and protection rangers, and they're your law enforcement rangers.
Okay.
They're dressed just like me. Sometimes they may wear the same Smokey the Bear hat. Sometimes they'll wear the caps like you guys are wearing right now.
That's a sweet hat.
And
It is a sweet hat.
they got that's why I wanted to become a park ranger.
Right.
Yeah, just to wear the hat.
Uniform,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
Some of my law enforcement counterparts don't want to wear this because it's not very tactical.
Mhm.
No, that's
it makes
killer,
them stand out, but that's
Yeah.
a cool hat.
Yeah.
But they'll have the utility belt and the gun and all that on, and they're really out there to protect the resource
Right.
and also protect the visitors and protect the employees that are at the park. And then you have the interpretation ranger, visitor services ranger. At Gulf Islands, we call ourselves resource education, and we are doing formal and informal education and interpretation of the natural and cultural resources. We do that through guided tours, recreation programs, events. The interpretive signs, or they're the informational signs you'll see throughout the park.
Yeah.
So really, like we say interpretation, an interpreter might be interpreting languages, one language to another, while we're interpreting the history. We're trying to make it digestible, understandable, and relevant to our visitor base. We really want to make our resources or the park site itself meaningful to the individual, because the National Park Service and everybody that works under it believes if we can do that, then if it's meaningful to you, it's relevant to you, you're going to help take care of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Explain to me the difference. I mean, what makes an island, or where we're talking about a national seashore? What does that involve?
So a national seashore is very much like a national park. And there is 400, I'm going to get this number wrong. I'm not
That's
up to
cool.
date on it. I'm
That's
going to
all
say
good.
there's
Yeah.
427 National Park Service sites.
Okay.
And not all those are national parks. There's something like 56 national parks. There's different designations: national military parks, national historic sites, national monuments, national memorials, like Flight 93 that we talked about. A national monument can actually be designated by the president through an executive order.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to go through Congress, doesn't have to go through that process. Well, a national seashore and a national park do.
Okay.
So it is enabling legislation that goes through Congress that makes us a National Park Service site as a seashore, as a park.
Right.
So like Gulf Island's National Seashore is the largest national seashore in the country. We're as big as a lot of national parks. We get that seashore designation because of the coastal environment. And that's what you'll see around the country: Fire Island, Padre Island, Cape Canaveral. So it's these coastal environments that are basically set up like a national park. Maybe there's a little more emphasis on things like recreation at a seashore. You'll see that in the enabling legislation,
Mm-hmm.
which is that document that really sets out how we're going to manage the park in the beginning. And there's all this cascade of documents that come after that. But more than anything, it's about that coastal environment and ecosystem and what makes it unique and different from, let's say, a Yosemite or Yellowstone.
Yeah. I didn't realize that I've only heard of the ones in Mississippi, but it's everywhere. Of course, it's everywhere. Crab Islands, a national seashore. There's all kinds of stuff that's you probably wouldn't even notice is a national seashore.
And do you know what National Seashore Crab Island is?
I have no idea.
Gulf Islands National Seashore.
Really?
So that is also a part of Gulf Islands. And like I said, I couldn't name all the national seashores. I should be able to. But, like I said, Fire Island is one. Cape Canaveral is a famous one. The Outer Banks National Seashore Parks. So if we go up to North Carolina, very similar environment to what we have down here in Mississippi. That's also a national seashore area.
Dang. Okay. What does your turf cover where you're here now in Ocean Springs? Like what does that encompass?
Yeah. So we call it the Mississippi District or Mississippi area. Gulf Islands is divided into two distinct districts, which are by state. Mm-hmm. So we have Mississippi and we have the Florida area, which is in the panhandle there.
Right.
And in those areas or in those districts is a bunch of little properties. We're not one big kind of blob as some national parks are. We're actually all these little areas. The Davis Bayou area in Mississippi there in Ocean Springs is our mainland location. And then, of course, the Mississippi Barrier Islands. So all those islands are in the Mississippi District. So that kind of encompasses ours. We have Petty Boy, West Petty Boy. We have Horn Island. We have Cat Island. And of course, Ship Island, which is kind of our flagship operation, visitor services wise, because that's the island that the public ferry runs out to. Mm-hmm. So it's the most affordable and most accessible for our visitor base to get out to. And then there's numerous areas over in Florida. Probably the flagship operation over there in the Florida area is the Fort Pickens area at the end of Santa Rosa Island. That's got all the beautiful public beaches. It's got the campgrounds, the big RV campgrounds that people from all over the country come to stay at. It's pretty rare to be able to take your RV out onto a barrier island to be able to actually stay and have that environment. We don't have that in Mississippi. You're going to be wilderness camping if you go out to an island.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So once it's labeled a national seashore, there's some rules and recs that come with that, correct?
Yeah, and those are, as I said, there's that cascading of documents that come down, kind of fine tune how you're going to manage a National Park Service site. 36 CFR is a law document that manages basically all the national parks.
Right.
And those are, I would say, some of the more common sense rules, like things you really, you can't do, speeding, vandalism and things like that. And then at the very bottom for us is called a superintendent's compendium. And those are special rules that they'll put into place. And one of the things that I'll kind of point out that is relevant to our national seashore would be things like shorebird closures,
right?
Because of the great habitat we have down here for nesting shorebirds on the northern Gulf Coast. Mm-hmm. And then relating to that, something very specific that I know a lot of people don't like, but when we educate them on the why, I think a lot of them understand. And you cannot have dogs, you can't have canines on the Mississippi Barrier Islands or on the Florida beaches. And the reason for that is that canine scent is a predator scent. And those birds, if they pick that up, that prime habitat, nesting habitat that they need to survive, they'll vacate it. They won't come. So just having your dog run around on the beach, it's innocent. I love dogs. I would love to have my dog run around on the beach, but it seems like to some people kind of a unnecessary rule. But we have people a lot smarter than I am, scientists that look into that, and they realize that is very detrimental to the nesting population of those shorebirds.
Now,
makes sense.
For us, that what does that fall under? Ship Island and Horn Island, is that deer is not?
No, deer is owned by the state, correct?
It's either owned by the state or I almost want to say maybe the city of Biloxi.
Well, some of it is private. It's for sale, actually.
Yeah.
But you can have dogs out there, correct? So it's just Ship and Horn and Petty Boy.
It's all the barriers.
Ship, Horn, Petty Boy, and Cat. Now, about half of Cat Island. I feel like half of Cat Island is private. And then there is a part of Cat Island that is also owned by the state, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we don't own all of Cat Island.
We talked to Delbert about that one.
So different rules, depending on what part you're on, there are different rules there. The islands that are really focused on for us for the shorebird habitat in Mississippi are Petty Boy, West Petty Boy, Horn Island, and Ship.
Okay.
So even with all the human activity, Ship is just a giant sandbar for the most part.
Right.
And that's what that's the shoreline that those birds are looking for.
You keep saying West Petty Boy and Petty Boy. Is that because it's too different, or why do you keep saying that, the West Petty Boy and Petty Boy?
So from what I understand, they're two different islands, and there's areas that was actually used as a refuse area or dump for the Army Corps of Engineers when they're dredging those shipping lanes, and that partially created that. That might be thinking of Sand Island is. Yeah. And I got to say, Sand Island and West Petty Boy might be the same.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
I don't get out to those islands. I'm usually on Ship Island. But also, they're breaking apart naturally. Mm-hmm. Petty Boy is a remnant of Dolphin Island. So
Right.
really, really unique. Not exclusive to the Mississippi Barrier Islands, but still pretty unique. There's not a lot of, I don't know if there's another national park that really manages islands that this is happening to. But those barrier islands are slowly drifting northwest, right? So they are naturally changing, evolving. They're very malleable. And we can see that through historic images, both maps and recently satellite images, that those islands are moving. And as far as geomorphology goes, they're moving really fast.
Yeah.
Mountains we'll never see a mountain move.
Right.
We can watch those islands move basically in our lifetime.
Especially when you got a Cat 5 hurricane.
Yeah.
And exactly. Yeah. And some of that's natural process. Like really, like when we're putting the islands back together, I think for the most part, I would say we're doing it for human use, both because those barrier islands protect human life and property by being a literal barrier for those large storms, and also for the recreation use that we get out of the island, as well as the natural habitat for the wildlife.
It's really a blessing that you just take for granted that it's there. If it was gone, I mean, it's so much of good memories, good times, like you said. It's just having those right there that you can just go out to, not so far away.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. And when I bring people down here, or just when I'm talking to tourists, they're like, what's something I should do? And I'm biased, but I'm like, go to Ship Island.
Yeah.
Somehow get on, rent a boat, charter a boat, get out to Horn Island. Because it's kind of like you're on a deserted island, 7 to 12 miles off the coast. That's a pretty unique experience.
Yeah, it is.
I can't think of a lot of places up where I'm from in the Northeast where you could go to an island that large and there not be houses or development, businesses and things like that. It's pretty unique.
And what's crazy is there's a lot of people that's lived here their entire life that have never been out there, never seen it.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. All the time we get that. And even the Davis Bayou area, which is a little almost set up kind of like a state park. It used to be Magnolia State Park, pavilions, boat launch, campground, all that stuff. Even there, which is a beautiful little green space, you're like 2.5 miles off all the hustle and bustle of Ocean Springs. I mean, people don't know it's there in Ocean Springs. I mean, they see that road, they see the seashore sign, and many people have never turned down it.
Yeah. What? So go talk to us a little bit about what we were talking about before we went live with the barrier islands and some of the different restrictions. You mentioned the dogs. That's one of them. I think we mentioned earlier again before we turned the cameras on
camping.
The camping on Ship Island. I didn't even know that. I think maybe we talked about that one time. I feel like we had that conversation at one point about let's go camping, but we can't go to Ship or whatever. But can you elaborate on that, the whys and the how, the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, and that happened, I think, I want to say before my time or maybe right when I just got here.
Like in 19-ish? Okay, yeah.
Because when I got here in 2019, they were just starting the Mississippi Project, and the Mississippi Project was partnered with us and the Army Corps of Engineers. They were filling the Camille Cut, and they were putting Ship Island back together for those reasons.
Oh, I remember watching it. That was an undertaking.
Oh, it was crazy how much cubic feet of sand these guys move. I mean, it's nuts.
And the fishing was killer while they were doing it.
Well, the seashell hunting too. People were coming with these like huge exotic seashells because all that was getting dredged up and dumped there.
Well, they pulled it from Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, right? Did they pulled all the sand and then dredge it over here?
Yeah,
barge it over here.
I'm not familiar with that part.
Yeah, I think they were just pulling in these shells, and everybody was like, "Yeah, look at all this stuff." So
I see the crazy one. I didn't even know what it was. It was some kind of conch or whelk, and had all these spikes coming out of it. And it was just somebody found it, and they're like,
"Wild, yeah."
They're like, "Can I take this?" And you can take seashells as long as there's nothing living in them on the barrier islands. But yeah, they put the prohibition on camping out there, and that was done through the superintendent's compendium, which is the lowest level rules document that we have in our park. The superintendent, working with our law enforcement staff, sets those rules. And I think the biggest reason and justification was, one, as it was going on, the heavy machinery equipment, the shifting sand, there was probably areas out there they didn't want people to walk on.
Right.
And now that filling of the sand has mostly been complete, they have to lay down the vegetation, namely sea oats, because without the vegetation and that root system, that sand's not going to stay. It will shift just like sandbars. So I think a lot of it now is they don't want people trampling those new sea oat seedlings that they're putting down. But yeah, we probably will come to a time where that will be revisited. It probably will be constantly revisited. Things we do change and shift rules all the time, depending on how different leadership interpret it, or different situations that are going on at that time where we have to make an adjustment.
I definitely understand the sea oat thing and getting the root system down to keep the, what everything that they put there, where they put it, and not have it cut through again or move away. Is there certain parts out there right now that you're not even allowed to land on or walk on? That would make sense, right? Not just camping, or is it just the camping that's the problem?
Yeah, to my knowledge, it would be only the shorebird closures, or maybe some of the areas where they'll have temporary closures for turtle nesting, or where they put down some vegetation.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, I want camping on Ship Island because that's my deal. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I said this before we went on air, like, I want people to experience not just the Barrier Islands during the day. I want them to stay out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want them to be out there on a beautiful October night where the wind's going.
It's an
and
experience.
amazing.
You notice he said October.
Yes, he did.
Because any other month you'll die.
I want them to be out there in August to get torn apart by bugs.
Just so you know.
People experience
That's
out
right.
there too.
That's right.
So I would be somebody who would advocate for that. But at the same time, as I said, we have different teams in our organization, in our park. And, we all come to the table, and when there's different reasons that they're putting forward, obviously we're going to yield and go with what, what the best decision is for everybody.
Yeah.
For sure.
Ship Island's a big one because we got the fort. I guess that's y'all's wheelhouse. You got a ranger
sir.
out there. You have a ranger station that used to be out there. I guess it's still out there at some point. The old quarantine station and stuff like that. But you have a ranger out there that does tours of the fort, correct?
Yeah, right now on the resource education staff, counting permanent and seasonal employees and myself, we have 5 employees mixed between park rangers and park guides, and we are out Ship Island almost every day in the summer. Only time we're not is if we have some kind of scheduling conflict where somebody has to take leave or calls out. But every day, 7 days a week, we're doing 2 guided tours of Fort Massachusetts at 10:15 and 1:15 p.m. It's 10:15 a.m., 1:15 p.m.
Right.
And then also on Saturdays, we're firing off the historic rifled muskets. So in the Civil War uniform inside the fort.
Really?
That's a program we just finally stood up last year. So that was like a big endeavor for us. I went and had to get the training up in Anderson, Alabama, the national training to be able to facilitate and offer that program. And now all my employees and several of my volunteers are trained in it. So we talk about one of the units that was stationed on Ship Island during the Civil War. And what we're really trying to do is we want to get people in the mentality of, and this is the thing, Ship Island, Horn Island, it's nice when you're out there for a couple hours with your friends or your family.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you're throwing a couple back, you're swimming, you're getting
in the water. Yeah.
In the water, it's great.
Not stationed.
For a couple of days, it could be an exciting spot if you're camping. Yeah, if you're out there long term, it's a miserable place.
It's a grind, yeah.
So we put our rangers in that full uniform, firing that muskets. You're seeing them sweating, you're smelling the gunpowder, you're hearing the boom. And if you can imagine, if that was your life all day, every day for the soldiers that were garrisoned out there,
miserable.
That was miserable. And I think it's important to paint that picture. It's not all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, right? History sometimes is ugly, gritty, and we want to give people the full picture. And that's one of the ways we do it. Yeah.
And the tours are absolutely free, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Almost everything we do in the National Seashore is free. The one exception is we have areas that are take an entrance fee, like the Fort Pickens area. Mississippi is a fee-free area. And of course, if you want to get out the Ship Island, you can take a private boat.
Right.
You can charter a boat. You can be really ambitious. Some people kayak out there once in a while.
No, thank you.
Well, you can jump on the ferry.
You can jump on the ferry. And I think that right now is about $42 a person.
That's not bad at all.
Relatively, it's a little expensive when you think about a family. But yeah, when you think about what it costs to charter a boat, what it costs to rent a boat,
to get much
cheaper to get people out there.
And that you're talking about the excursion, right? The
Ship
Island, that's a nice ride.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big boat. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're part of the National Seashore's history. They've been doing it since the 1930s.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And a quick shout out to Louis Scametta, the owner of Ship Island. He's a great partner for us, and condolences to him.
One
Peter
of them just
Scametta,
passed away, right?
Peter Scametta, his father just passed away. Captain Pete, who's one of those boats, is named after. So really a huge figure in northern Gulf Coast, Mississippi coast, and also Gulf Islands.
So you said you're one of y'all is at least out there or two daily. Is that you two? Are you in that rotation at Ship Island?
I am. I like it. I wish it was more.
Yeah.
These days I do get tied a little bit more to the mainland and the desk, but I would say I get out there once or twice a week.
Okay.
I'm out there every Saturday. We're doing that musket firing because I have to be for safety reasons.
Okay.
But we have that crew of 5 plus volunteers. I think we have 3 or 4 volunteers now that rotate out with us. And we're out there daily. We ride the ferry out with the visitors. We ride it back with them. And then periodically, like coming up for the July 4th weekend, we'll have rangers that will stay out there. So we'll all rotate 1 night, 2 nights. We'll leave. Somebody else will come in. We do have island caretakers, maintenance staff. I mean, the islands run on diesel fuel. It's run on generator power. Mm-hmm. So there is always somebody staying out in the season on Ship Island, usually a maintenance personnel. Right now, I think we have 2 guys that rotate. So they go back and forth. They're never out there full time, but they do these 4 days on, I think 3 days off shifts. They're back and forth. And same thing with our law enforcement staff to make sure everybody's, protected, everybody feels safe out there, including us employees. Mm-hmm. They're rotating out there and staying the night periodically as well.
So if you've never been to Ship Island, you get off the ferry and you walk up, the fort's to your right and you keep walking. there's more buildings. There's bathrooms, showers, all kinds of stuff like that. And then there's a place where you can rent chairs on the
south side.
south side of the island. Is that all y'all's stuff?
It's us. It's really it's run by Ship Island Excursions.
Okay.
So they are an official. They're called a concessionaire. So we get a kickback to the National Park Service, to Gulf Island's National Seashore, I should say, of the revenue that they're generating. And, concessionaire, somebody like them, we need them to make that operation work.
Absolutely.
We don't have the capacity right now to have ferries, have people to be able to pilot those ferries, have all those people to rent the chairs and there's a snack bar out there with ballpark style food. So we work in partnership with them. And as I said, almost everything we do is free in the park. Most of our programs are free, whether it's kayaking, guided tours, what have you. But there are entrance fees you have to pay in some spots. There are camping fees you have to pay. Obviously, you don't get to camp for free. In most locations, Horn Island, you do.
Yeah.
But the good thing about that is that revenue goes into a pot of money, which then in part comes back to make sure things like kayaking are free. These tours are free. So the revenue comes back. So we're able to offer these programs free of cost because you are paying for things like camping and to enter certain spots where the beaches are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're paying for services, one way or another, but a lot of the things that we do in Mississippi are absolutely free.
Jared brought up something earlier, the kayak this weekend in Davis Bayou. Is that y'all?
Yeah.
That would be us. Yeah. On Sundays at 10 a.m.
Yeah. That's killer.
That's become probably our most popular program. We stood the kayak program up back in Davis Bayou. It was down for several years because of hurricanes and other reasons. And for the most part, we do our daily kayak programs on Sunday at 10 a.m. They're almost always booked up. And then we do special programs. We've done moonlight paddles at night. We've done sunrise paddles. We've done family paddles, and all those, for the most part, have been partnered with Jackson County Recreation.
Let's dive into those. Do you have to have your own kayaks? Do y'all supply the kayaks?
We
Give us the
supply
details.
absolutely everything.
Really?
So you can show up. We ask you wear closed-toed shoes and something you're okay with getting wet in.
Right.
We got the paddles. We got the life jackets. We got the kayaks. We have you set up with everything. So again, we're really targeting families, especially with small children or people who've never been kayaking.
Yeah.
Because we can offer you that experience in a safe, controlled area, and you're still going to get out and see that bayou from a different perspective than you've ever seen it before. And I love taking people out there that are from the Midwest and the Northeast, because I know what it's like to not be from this area. I know what I picture when I think of a bayou in my head before I came down here.
Yeah.
And mostly I'm picturing a swamp.
Yes.
Right?
Look at ditch. Yeah.
All the negatives is what I would picture.
Yeah. Alligators, bugs,
all that stuff. Yeah. Alligators chasing me, bugs, the size of my head biting me. And then you get
Which
out.
is somewhat true.
It is somewhat true,
Somewhat true.
for sure. But you get out some days on Davis Bayou. Actually, most days I would say when we do our program, even if it's hot, looking back, seeing the bayou from the water, looking back is just such a different perspective than being on the trail or on the road or off in the wood line and looking out towards the water. And I really think it's just like a really peaceful, kind of awe-inspiring moment for a lot of people that gives them now that when they think bayou, they're thinking something totally different. And for the most part, it's probably positive.
Now, when y'all are doing that, is this educational? Or y'all like
pointing stuff out,
wildlife out, or specific places? Can you walk us through that?
For sure. Yeah. So we right now do basically two types of kayak programs. We do one called Kayaking 101, which the main goal of that is to get people out and get them comfortable on the water.
Okay.
So we may do some wildlife spotting, but for the most part, it's for novices where we go, we got you. This is how you hold the paddle. This is how you propel yourself. You're on the most stable kayak we can provide you. We're going to educate them on how really the gators aren't a problem.
Right.
When you're a grown human, even when you're, probably a kid and you're sitting on that, 12-foot kayak, you're a pretty imposing figure to even a large gator. Maybe the younger gators will be curious and maybe come near. Most part, they're staying away. So just giving people, empowering them to be comfortable, get out, and hopefully, again, it's something that they're going to take and not only enjoy themselves, but perpetuate and teach their kids and teach the younger generation that this is something that, they're going to want to do. So they're going to want to care for those waterways. The other program we do, we call it the Salt Marsh Tour. And this is really letting people know the geographical and environmental importance of the bayou, the intertidal zone, where you have that fresh water slowly moving down through those tributaries and meeting bigger bodies of water, salt water, like the Biloxi Bay and the Mississippi Sound, how that all kind of spins together and creates that brackish water environment. And the reason is, you guys know that fishing is such, prominent in those areas. a lot of the smaller life, the crustaceans, the smaller fish, crabs, shrimp, they start their life in that brackish water salt marsh environment.
Mhm.
Right.
So we call it a salt marsh nursery. And it's prime picking for some of those larger species and fish. So they
Redfish love
come
it.
into the bayou. Redfish love it. Speckled trout.
Yeah.
They come into the bayou and to feed on that. And then again, perpetuates that food circle or food cycle all the way out into the Gulf of Mexico. So eventually they will grow up and make their way out and spread in the larger bodies of water. And then again, it's giving a food chain for some of those larger species that are going to come into that area and feed on those fish. We see a crazy diversity of birds and thickness and quantity of birds, especially the fishing and wading birds,
Right.
the egrets, the herons, the soaring birds like the osprey. So if you just kind of sit there on your kayak in the bayou, even for 15 minutes, and I always try to preach to people, yeah, we'll get out, we'll have fun, we'll splash around, but let's do at least a couple minutes of just sitting there.
Just take it in.
Just give it a minute or so. And when you do that, you will see the wildlife activities start to come alive before your eyes. And you'll literally see that food cycle in front of you. You'll see the osprey hunting. You'll see the herons.
Nutri-rats, the raccoons.
You'll see the
Yes.
nutria rats. You'll see the river otters. We got river
Yeah.
otters in Davis Bayou. And really all it takes to be is just to keep your ears and eyes open and keep your mouth shut.
That's it.
And those things will start coming out and people are like, whoa, I didn't know.
Yeah.
You'll never see them if you're being loud. or
Put
not
your
paying
cell phone
attention.
down for 20
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
That's probably the hardest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is all killer stuff that you can do during the summer. I mean, people are looking for stuff to do with kids, and this is absolutely free, right?
Yeah.
Just go to your website and sign
Well,
up.
already, and I linked it in
Yeah.
below in the comments right now. I linked to y'all's Facebook page and that specific event for this Sunday.
Yes, Facebook's probably the best site to go to for us. Our Stephanie Wade, who we talked about earlier, she's our public information officer. She reaches a lot of people through the Facebook events, and that's going to tell you on that event on Facebook how you register. For our kayak program right now, the regular ones that we do daily or weekly, that's a number you call into the visitor center. Ranger goes over the rules, what you need, gets you signed up. For the special programs we do with Jackson County, and we have one coming up on July 28th. It is a sunrise paddle with Jackson County Recreation. Shout out to Nika, my good friend over there, who helps me out with those programs. She actually takes care of the registration. It's done online through Jackson County Recreation. So you just go on, click a little bit. We're a little bit old school with the phone number. But for those programs, like let's say for ours, we can accommodate 10 people. When we partner with Jackson County, we double that because they lend us their kayaks and some of their personnel.
Right.
They take care of the registration. So it allows us to do a little bit bigger of a program.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm looking at their Facebook events on the
There's a
Facebook
pile
page.
of
Good
them.
Lord, there's a ton. I mean, I had no clue that y'all did all this. I mean, and I've lived here forever. So
Yeah, we just released our July program schedule today, actually, and we have this huge, I think for the first time I've been here, really probably the most ambitious holiday schedule for the 4th of July weekend and the lead up to it. I mean, out there on Ship Island, starting July 4th, we're doing a program, a different type of program about every hour, and we're doing that through Saturday. So it's going to be a huge lift for my staff. It's going to be really, really hot out there. But,
Oh, yeah.
you know, we're going to take care of ourselves and the visitors, and hopefully we can educate some people and show them a good time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
that is
Well,
good.
you brought up the gators, you brought up the bugs. We've done it. Everybody's done it. We've camped on Horn Island before the ban or whatever you want to call it. We've camped on Ship Island. If I want to do that, run us through the regulations of what we can and cannot bring out there.
Yeah, so for Horn Island, it's federally designated wilderness. We talked about the dogs for that shorebird
Right.
reason. You also can't have any wheeled vehicles, which is a strange one and throws a lot of people off because it includes coolers and carts.
Really?
So you cannot, the letter of the law to the Wilderness Act, and we're trying to be as true to it as we can. Because I think there were some years, maybe between the 70s and early 2000s where we got a little away from it. There were structures built on Horn Island by the Park Service.
Right.
Those since have all been removed because it really is supposed to stay as untouched as possible.
Did we talk about the definition of the Wilderness Act? You said you could summarize that for us, right?
or wilderness area. I think is what you mean.
No, the act, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, so the Federal Wilderness Act, and before we went on, I'm like, man, I couldn't name the dates and everything.
Right.
Yeah,
But you can summarize it.
Yeah,
for us,
I can. Really, what I like to do is compare it to something like a wildlife refuge to show people the differences between it. Because obviously, we want this wilderness to exist untouched, uninhibited as much as possible by humans, so wildlife and the ecosystem can thrive.
Right.
But really, what federally designated wilderness is about, it's about creating that untouched landscape for the use of you and future generations.
Okay.
So it is so you can go out there. And again, I'll go back to the wheel thing. You're like, that's kind of dumb for coolers. But once you start seeing those wheels in the sand, guess what? You're not on an uninhabited beach anymore. That's something that you see. That's part of the modern identity that we're trying to get away from by creating this wilderness and kind of cultivating it by putting these rules in place. So you can go out and camp on Horn Island like you were just marooned on Horn Island. Yes, you'll see boats going by and planes flying over, but you're not going to see buildings and structures. You're not going to see ATVs or UTVs riding around. For the most part, you're going to be living out there, other than some of the cool gadgets and equipment that you might bring. You're going to be living out there like you would be living if all this
off the grid,
all this modern luxury was not there. And that's what wilderness is trying to create, or that's what we're trying to cultivate with areas that are federally designated as wilderness.
So I mean, are we being specific to the wheel, meaning that I can bring a cooler, it just can't have wheels on it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's that I'd like to use that because it's an extreme example,
right?
Because it's like, again, some people scoff at that, but you want to try to be true to the act and the rules that are in there because they're in there for a reason to try to create that experience.
Okay. Right. So I'm thinking though too, like wagons, like the little tiny ones you get from Academy to carry your stuff in.
Can't do it.
You can't do it. And that's probably one that people would gripe about the most. Again, coolers are heavy. You got all your, people are going out there again, especially this time of year, 4th of July. Yeah, not everybody's going to go out there, get thrown off a boat, in their underwear and sit there with a spear and run around with war paint on and fish. Yeah, you could do that, but most people are taking their coolers with their drinks and they're taking
food,
modern food and modern
chicken and
tents,
watermelon,
all that stuff. So
that's what we bring.
Maybe food to cook. You can have campfires on Horn Island as long as it's not in the interior parts of the island, so we don't risk a wildfire. So I think it's got to be within 3 to 5 feet of the high tide line.
Okay, that was my next question of the limitations on the fire.
You can have a beach campfire, exactly. And I'm going to tell you this, as I said, we're constantly adjusting. We're constantly adjusting for the betterment of the environment and the area that we're managing. But we're also adjusting to appease people and make sure that they can have the experience. The National Park Service is created, again, for the enjoyment of this in future generations. It's America's playground. So I said, unlike a lot wildlife refuge, which you have a habitat that must be blocked off so a species or several species can be able to survive. A lot of those have fences areas around them. You're not allowed them in the mall because that is for the wildlife. That's not what National Park Service sites for the most part are about. We may have to do area closures like for shorebirds, things like that, but we want you to get out there and actually experience and be in it. So the fires, we got to a point about 4 or 5 years ago. We said no fires on Horn Island.
I think I remember that.
You could go out to Horn Island. You could not have a beach campfire out there. And how do you think visitors felt?
They hated it. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
You can't really camp. I mean, camping without a fire is not.
It's kind of not camping.
Yeah, it's not camping.
Yeah.
Now
Keeps the bugs away. You gotta cook on it. It does pretty much everything.
Just sitting around it.
Right.
Sitting around a campfire is camping.
I feel like a caveman.
Yeah,
I want to beat my chest. You know what I'm saying?
Like sitting on a beach is really cool at night and beautiful, but I could do that on the main. Like I want to have a fire on the sand, and of course you got to clean it up and make sure it's left the way you found it. But yeah, so we changed that. We realized that was part of the experience that people were looking for.
What about firewood? Are you allowed to take wood off the island, or you have to bring the firewood out there?
So that has been and I'm Rhonda Harper, who is, when I said there's 2 type of park rangers, right? I'm the supervisor for this resource education in Mississippi. Rhonda Harper is the supervisor for the she'll probably be mad I said her name, but she's a supervisor for the visitor.
You're out there, Rhonda. You're online. Yeah, you're there.
She's a great partner for me, and she's the one who really is involved with making sure people follow the rules for the betterment of everybody.
Right.
And recently we've made the change through our compendium where it says we want people to bring their own firewood out to Horn Island. Yeah. And really whatever is not burned up, even if it's charred, you should be taking it back out with you. That's leave no trace.
Okay.
So you really shouldn't be leaving anything everything you've brought out with you within reason, should be come back off with you when you leave. And that is another wilderness thing that I'm going to go into this one. And like the wheel thing, some people may roll their eyes. That includes human waste. So you are supposed to be taking portable toilets with those wag bags out with you. And again, the reason for that is it's really gross to bring human waste back, but it's also really gross that if you have a finite space that's overrun with human waste, you just ruin the environment, not just for the wildlife, but for other people that want to go out and enjoy it. So yeah, you should be bringing all that stuff back off. That's what leave no trace is. Leave only footprints. And that all goes into basically the principles and really what the gist of the Wilderness Act is.
Yeah. Where are those rules found? I'm sure there's a list of them somewhere on y'all's website, correct?
Yes, there is. The Superintendent's Compendium is posted on the Gulf Island National Seashore webpage, and you can read through the whole thing. They break it down in sections. It's not just like a PDF that's posted on there. It's broken down in sections per specific rules and areas that you can read through there. There are, like I said, there are some that are probably common sense, but there are probably some that are not. So I would always say to people, the best way to get your information is probably to call us or reach out to us.
Right.
Ask those questions, because I really don't expect somebody before they're going on a camping trip to Horn Island to sit down and read through that compendium. But if you give us a call, we'll help you out. Ask us your questions. And then if you do want to take time to go through the details of it to see what you do and you can't do, that compendium is there for you to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm in a couple of Facebook groups, and it's all about the islands and stuff like that. And there's just these questions I'm reaming off to you are the ones that come to the top of my head. Somebody said that you cannot beach a boat on Ship Island. Is that correct? Can I pull up to the shore and beach my boat on Ship Island?
I do believe you. I want to say that you can. I think I take that back. I think you're supposed to wade in. I think that's the right rule. Maybe Rhonda will call in and correct me.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep saying her name.
The safe answer is to anchor and wait.
Right.
I gotta look that one up, because that's not one I deal in. But I do know you're not allowed to dock on the pier out there, because we've had near misses with the ferry coming in and people not moving, and God forbid we have the ferry collide with somebody's boat.
Yeah, that would be bad.
That's a huge thing.
Yep.
So you can. Most people I see out there, I think you can beach your boat. I mean, again, when you're within that high tide line, as long as you're not walking up and trampling the dunes,
right?
But that might be one we'll be calling you and get back to put out like,
you can't do that no more.
Somebody right now is listening to go like, no. But most people I see, they anchor and they wade in, and I know that I believe that's what they want you to do on Horn Island because of the wilderness.
I know one of the two that come to mind. One is the jet skis, right? You're not allowed to ride a jet ski within, is it a
I think it's a mile and a half,
you know,
2
that
miles.
one, without being directly headed to in other words, you can take a jet ski, like just say to Horn Island, but once you get within a certain distance, I don't know if it's a mile or 100 yards, I really don't remember, but you're supposed to be headed directly in. In other words, you're not supposed to be 50 yards off the shore and just doing donuts and running around crazy.
No, yeah. And again, that is something that was revised and changed. I can't remember what the older rule was, but it was much more strict.
Okay.
Now is, yes, you want to be approaching basically at a 90-degree angle. And you want to go to no wake when you're within 500 feet.
Okay.
And that is just because on a busy holiday and a busy weekend, all those freaking boats that are lined up on either side. And we still see people weaving in and out of them with jet skis they brought from the mainland.
Yes.
You're just like this little miscalculation from killing yourself or killing somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a rule that's there for a good reason. You got so much open water out there.
I know.
You don't need to be weaving in and out of boats on.
We end up at Deer Island a lot because of convenience, the wind,
weather.
Right? You don't have to, especially on the north side. You can almost always go out there.
Yeah.
And when you got smaller kids and a lot of gear, we always end up just kind of stopping right there. Well, I don't guess any of those rules apply. Especially because you're so close to the channel where we go, and it's just nonstop the whole time you're there. Just a lot of traffic, regardless. But jet skis back and forth, and then going to where the boats are, then back and forth. So bumping boats around like you're talking about, like it gets a little frustrating.
Yeah. People die on jet skis around coastal. I mean, like, I don't know what the numbers are, but it happens a lot, unfortunately. And that is because you can jump on a jet ski, right? Mm-hmm. You show up, you do their little whatever their test is, you jump on a jet ski, and a couple of weeks ago, it was on a weekend randomly. It wasn't a holiday. It was like on a Saturday. And we had the most visitors, both by ferry and boats, that we've seen maybe in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had like 1,300 people out there just on the ferries. And you could look down to the east and look down to the west. It's just a line of boats all stacked up. It was really amazing to see. And then out looking towards basically right where the Coliseum is in Biloxi, you just see this like long line of something flying towards. And it was like a jet ski club or so, I don't know what it was, but there was like 60 jet skis and they were all flying right all towards those boats. Now, thankfully, they had
go away.
Thankfully, they had, I guess, a responsible group leader or somebody that educated them, because they actually didn't even come within, probably 100 yards of where those boats were docked, and they were doing circles, but they stayed off in the distance. So it was like, thank God, you get those flying in and out. It's just like,
what do you say that? I saw a reel. It was like in New York, but like by I don't know specifically where, by Manhattan, and it was the same thing you're talking about. Just I don't know how many hundreds of jet skis. It was like a rendezvous. I don't know what the word is, but the real convention is just all these jet skis that had the entire body of water right there just lit up with just white wakes as they're going through. I don't think I've ever seen that many jet skis.
A flock of jet skis,
whatever it is,
a herd of jet skis.
Whatever it is, it was a lot of them. So,
a lot of them.
The other one was about the island specifically, and I think the ones designated under y'all's control that we learned after the fact of purchase. You can't fly a drone over it.
Yeah.
What's the reason in there?
So another thing that's been has changed with time, because I remember when I got my first permanent job at Flight 93, you couldn't fly a drone over any national park almost for any reason.
Couldn't?
You couldn't.
Couldn't.
No,
Okay,
I mean we had like a presidential visit there. And the Secret Service was like, we're going to fly a drone over for security reasons.
You're like, no, you're not.
And you had the Department of Interior, like them communicating with the Department of Interior. It was like, yeah, you're not. They're like, we're not. You can't tell us no. We're like, you're not doing it. And eventually,
dang, if they're telling Secret Service they can't, we have no hope.
Yeah, they did make a special accommodation, obviously for security reasons, and they were able to do it. But you are seeing more for like tourist footage reasons. People want to shoot promotional videos.
That's what we want
to highlight the islands.
Yeah. So I mean, pretty much the reason why we got this show today is because I was sitting on a dune at Horn Island and videoed all the way across and all the boats, and it was kind of like, and then what's her name, Stephanie?
Yeah,
Stephanie got in touch with me. He was like, Shay, we saw your video. Y'all got kind of a following. Can we get one of our officers on? So I was like, yeah, this video kind of shows what y'all got going on every weekend.
So it's not that you can't do it. There's a process. You would have to go through a special use permit or maybe a commercial use permit if it was commercial filming. And they have to approve it. And this is the reason, like a lot of these rules, people are always like, why?
Yeah.
Why do I have to get a permit to float the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon? No one owns the river. Why can't I just float down there and have a good time? I got to go through a permit process that I might get and I might not get, and I may never get that once in a lifetime experience. And it's my dream. It's all about managing use, because once you let the floodgates open for things that people really want to do, we get nervous because we've seen it before in our agency's history, in this country's history, that it becomes overrun and it ruins the experience. And when we're talking about drones,
the inch and the mile,
not only will you see just drones buzzing all over the place in a place where you really want that solitude, it's also can get such a volume that it would be dangerous for people and of course the wildlife, and especially the birds.
Yeah, especially when you get that many people out there and you're flying over top of them.
I was reading the comment that I'm going to read here in just a second from Matt. So Matt, give me 1 second. But did you say there is a way to get a commercial use
so if we wanted to go out there and shoot a commercial or do something,
just whatever, just get some footage. We over Horn Island, over Ship Island.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's again, a special use permit. It may be special use, and that would reach out to our permitting office.
Okay.
Let's see.
So it's possible.
Yeah.
GUIS_special_use_permits with an S at nps.gov.
This is a theme that I've so we have the DMR in here. We have all y'all in here. Y'all have the longest websites. I mean, the addresses ever.
It's the government. He led with that, right?
Again, we're managing this. Hopefully, by like when I get halfway through it, that person was like, if it was important to them, they'll stay on.
If
not, I don't want to fly my kids.
Oh, you are. What was that again? It's not that important.
You have to make it a little bit difficult.
You gotta want it.
You gotta earn it. Matt, I'm gonna flash the comment and I'll read this to you. I think we touched on it, but maybe we can just elaborate just a little bit. Matt wants to know. He said he's just tuning in. He said, "What's up with the 200 feet distance from the pier?" I'm assuming at Ship Island. He said, why? He said, and if it's for the ferry, then why does he have special accommodations?
So again, the ferry is a official concessionaire of Gulf Island National Seashore. They provide a valuable service to our visitor base. Yeah. So it's not really about, yes, they're making money and we want them to make money because we need them to be sustainable so they can provide that service. It's about getting people out there at affordable cost so they can experience those amenities. Now, to his question, again, we had incidents over the last few years where we had very, very what we call near misses in the government. These are things that if it went a little bit one way or the other, it would have been a loss of life or limb, possibly. And unfortunately, and this is like, I hate to put the blame on people, but maybe the best people in the world, but they make bad decisions at the time. Yeah. And at one point, you could pull up and dock to one section of that pier away from the ferry dock. And you said earlier, I think you give an inch, you take a mile.
Right.
Well, it got to the point where people were pulling up there, probably people renting boats, maybe not from the area. They docked where the ferry would dock, and they would not yield. And there are times when that ferry comes in, it's hard for them to stop.
It's a big
boat.
Yeah.
So if those smaller boats don't yield to that ferry is going to crash into them. And guess who's going to win? The
ferry's going to win.
And the ferry doesn't want that. The National Park Service doesn't want that. So that might not be a forever rule, but right now it is, because we've come close to serious accidents or safety incidents because of people docking and not yielding and moving from that area.
I think like you say too, the inch take a mile, but it's like if I pull up and I don't know the rules there and I see one boat or I see 6 boats, I may not realize that this is the only side you're allowed to be on, right? Or this is the specific area. And then I just, without even thinking about it, there was other boats there. I tie up right there. Maybe now I'm right in the spot where the excursion has to park. How would they get in touch with me, especially if I go up on shore, to move out of the way while this ferry's trying to dock?
Yeah, that's a great.
I mean, I know you can have signage and all that. I'm just saying, like, it can happen.
Well, who reads signs anyway? That's one thing we find in the park service all the time, right? Everybody's like, "I want a sign. I want a sign. We need a sign." I couldn't do it because there was no. I could do it, right? Because there's no sign there. Do you really want signs everywhere? But I have a personal vendetta against signs. But this is another way I would put it. Was it Matt?
Yeah,
it was Matt. Yeah.
So, what's the worst case scenario if you can't dock on that pier? The worst case scenario is you're going to have to get in a smaller boat or get your feet wet and swim in.
Mm-hmm.
For people that I would feel bad for, if you have an accessibility concern,
right?
If you have a mobility device, you need to use a wheelchair or cart, you're able to get it on your boat, but now you have no way to get it off. Those people I feel really bad for. And that honestly sucks. I'm just going to say sucks.
Yeah.
But there is a method to get out there through the ferry for those individuals.
Correct.
It isn't it, for the most part, we can make it an accessible experience where they can actually get onto the island, see the fort, see the beach. We have beach wheelchairs and things like that. So we have mitigations in place for that concern. The worst thing that can happen if you do dock on the pier and the person doesn't move is people could get killed.
Right.
So you have to kind of think of it in that term sometimes.
I know Matt's a fishing guy, kind of like I'm a fishing guy.
Sorry, Matt.
And that's I think that's what he's more worried about.
Well, he's actually got a follow-up. I'll just read it.
Go ahead.
He said, I'm bringing tourists to the island as well. He said, so they have priority because they charge $40 a piece. I don't think that's really the case, Matt. I think, like you're saying, it's about the fact that it's a larger vessel and you've had problems in the past. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it was honestly one of my staff who's witnessed the report, saw it, felt helpless to stop it, was screaming at this boat to please get out of the way, and he was getting ready to watch this boat get crushed. Thankfully, Captain Buck or Captain Lewis, whoever it was able to avoid that collision. So again, to be sympathetic to Matt, I totally understand. I mean, these, like I said, these rules can change over time. I would just guess they will change one way or the other as we kind of evaluate these situations. You want to take fairness into account, and I totally understand that. But I think at the end of the day, like us as a park, we're trying to do what we think is the best holistically for the entire visitor base.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to give special preference. We're not trying to, go to one side or the other. It may seem like that sometimes, but we're trying to do our best to look at things holistically and make sure everybody can have the best, safest experience as possible.
So even if the ferry's not there and say I'm going fishing out there, I have to stay at least 200 feet away, or can I get in there and throw a croaker underneath the pier?
And the rule is you're supposed to stay 200 feet away from the ferry pier.
All right. There it is.
There you go. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
So the rule is
because there's some big speckled trout underneath that pier.
It's like one of the things I love when we get really good clarity of water out there, like usually in like the coming out of the winter into the spring. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the water's not blue, but you can almost see right to the bottom. And
it's beautiful.
Pier. It looks like a darn aquarium.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen bull sharks circling around out there. Jack Crevelle's chasing the mullets, maybe a shark chasing the jacks, like just huge schools of rays and cow nose rays. And just to get out there in the pier, when you got good clarity to look down, is an experience for a lot of people. I love it.
Yeah.
Can you fish off the pier?
You are not allowed to fish off the pier. And that's been a consistent rule for a very long time. In fact, I'll tell you this, unless it's designated a fishing pier, like we have in Davis Bayou or they have over in the Fort Pickens area, for the most part, you're not allowed to fish off piers or finger piers. You get hooks, you get lines that are caught in. People are walking on them as they're trying to get on and off their boats.
Yeah.
Right.
And the big thing we see on Ship Island, because people will fish off of it, they clean their fish and they leave it all there. Now you're trudging through those
guts,
those guts there. So most of the places you can't fish directly off the pier. And again, that kind of I totally agree. Empathizing towards anglers, like you get a lot of those great fish that really congregate and go towards those structures that are in the water.
Now, can you go on the pier, just not fish?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Matt also commented again. He said, that's cool. He said, but the only way you can see the rays and stuff from the pier is if you're on the ferry.
Yeah.
Not true. You could just go
But
park somewhere else,
yeah.
walk onto the pier.
Yeah, you can go onto the pier, whether the ferry is there or not. I mean, when they unload, they actually put this little gate up to block that area off, so you don't have people. I think more than anything, it's about the safety of the people getting on and off.
Yeah, it's
so it's not overrun, but also so they can count their numbers and get accountability.
Right.
They want to make sure
Because they got to take them back.
Right. Got to come back.
Yeah.
So, but for most of that pier, I mean, down from where that ferry docks, you can hang out on there. You can get down and look into the water. You just can't fish off of it. You can't dock your boat on there.
Okay.
And again, now you can't get within 200 feet. And again, that is a reaction because of some of those close calls we had.
Yeah. Well, what else you got, Joe? Is that all the ones out of the
I just
group?
wanted to talk about, we talked about the islands, but there's actually a seashore park in Ocean Springs, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's y'all's. It has like softball fields and basketball fields and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and one thing I'm
Courts,
I'm
not
gonna-
fields.
Yeah, I was
I'm
going
going
to
to
call
get
you
into
out.
that. I'm going to say one more thing about the islands.
Yeah.
Camping on Horn Island is free. If you have over 10 people, you're supposed to file a wilderness permit with us for accountability reasons.
Right.
So we know who's out there in case something goes wrong.
Okay.
And you can do that through our website. So just to put that out there. You don't have to
I
pay
didn't know
for it.
that. I didn't know
Totally free. But if you have a big group out there, you do have to file that permit, mostly for safety and accountability reasons. But Davis Bayou started as Magnolia State Park. It was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps, who built a lot of state parks around the countries.
Right.
And I say that because it's very much set up like a state park. We have pavilions for really, really nice, beautiful pavilions that people can rent, get reservations for special events. We have several of them that are first come, first serve, so you can just show up, have your little picnic or have your little time out.
Yeah.
We have big fields for people, recreation, running around, doing what you want to do. But we have 2 wooded trails that go through the woods of the bayou.
Yeah.
Very nicely manicured. We have a public boat launch that people can use for free.
Mm-hmm.
You don't got to pay for the parking. You don't got to pay for the launching. You can leave your boat there. We always say if people are going to be out into the night or coming back, almost overnight, that you leave some kind of note or something on there to let us know that you're okay. You're out there.
We're not dead.
Fishing off the islands. Yes, we're not dead.
Right.
Dear Rhonda, I'm going to say her name one more time.
Yeah.
We're not dead.
We are alive.
And we again, the fishing pier, and we have a really, really, really nice RV and tent campground. So it is, every spot has the 110, 220 hookups. It has the water hookups. They have the cement pads, but also areas for if you prefer tent camping, which I would say like October, November.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Not right now.
and it's the thing I
Yeah.
love about our campground. It is relatively small. I think there's 48 sites. It's not this big mega RV campgrounds that you see. But the thing I love about it is it's beautiful, it's peaceful, and it's really, really cheap compared to a lot of other these campgrounds. It's $22 a night.
You can't beat that.
Normally, and if you have one of those special access passes, the senior passes, a lot of people take advantage of that. You got to be over 62, but it's $11 a night.
Yeah,
So,
and military get a discount too as well, because Heather's aunt, we always went there,
Yeah.
and National Park, they get a discount on their card as
Yeah,
well.
so military veterans are eligible. Active military and military veterans, retirees are eligible for a National Park Service pass for free. It's good for a lifetime, and it will get you into most federal land sites that charge a fee free of charge.
Yeah,
which is a really cool.
we went to the
thing.
sand dunes in Colorado, and it was a national park.
Yeah, that's a
national
cool
sand.
site.
Yeah, it was cool. And she pulled up, boom, hit the little thing, and we were
So
drove on in.
and you said cement pads, water, 110, and sewage out there.
So full service.
They have a sewage dump. I mean,
Okay,
one of the
okay.
things that it's not at every site,
Gotcha.
but you can pull through and you can dump there, and that is included with what you pay for that site. If you're able to do that and it's open, it's usually open. They used to charge and let people come in, I believe, and say it's $5 you can dump. But now because of capacity and volume, that's so dirt cheap. You're going to go there instead of go to the Flying
that's
J.
fine.
But yeah, if you can come in and it's open and working, you can pay that $11 to $22. It's usually $22, and you can use that sewage dump there too.
We used to go there when we were young, and we would play like softball and volleyball during the day. You get to have little barbecue pits where you can cook underneath the pavilions, and there was always a nature trail. And the nature trail was always awesome. That's what I always will remember.
Yeah, the Nature's Way loop is a half-a-mile loop through the woods of the bayou, and again, it's very well manicured, and it goes up to edges of the water where you're getting away from most other human activity other than the other people on the trail. And they're just great areas for just like, sometimes I go out there, I come into the park when I'm off and I just need to decompress and reset, relax. I'll just walk out, quarter mile on the nature trail, and I'll just pull myself up on a stump and sit and listen and hang out.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm a total like that's that. I know people are like, really? Yeah, I love that stuff.
Well,
man.
You're
I
a
get excited
ranger.
about
I would.
Yeah.
It would be weird if you weren't like that, wouldn't it? You're like, nah, I just like hanging out in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even like that.
Yeah.
I always remember one hole there was always an alligator. And everybody, we're little kids like, oh, an alligator, there it is, and then everybody would get fired up about it.
Like the one on Lemoyne. We talked about him
it was
before.
killer.
That's
Yeah.
killer.
I got to tell you guys a quick story. if
Go
you don't
ahead.
mind.
Go ahead.
There's, under the Oaks in Ocean Springs, there's where Aunt Jenny's Catfish Shack,
Mhm.
Yes.
and the Anthony
Right there on
Steakhouse and
Pops
all
Ferry.
that
Yeah,
room
Fort
down there.
Bayou.
I mean,
Yeah.
Fort Bayou.
I
do that.
I love trees to the point where there is that huge live oak down there. I mean, right next to Aunt Jenny's, it is massive.
It's
one of the
beautiful.
biggest,
Right on the
thickest
water,
trees
yeah.
I've ever seen in my life. We don't have that up in Pennsylvania for the most part. We cut them all down. So the live oaks were protected down here because they used them for the Navy ships. So you see these hundreds of years old tree.
Mhm.
So I'll bring people down here and, we're going to all these, they want to go to the nightlife spots. They want to go to the parks. They want to go kayaking. And I always surprise them. I drive under there, like under that bridge and
Yes.
park up near where the julep room is. And they're like, what are we doing? And I turn around that bed and I'm like, look at this tree. And I went up and like hug it. They roll their eyes. They're like, dude, you're such a stereotype. I'm like, but look at it.
It's so beautiful.
That's true. Man.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. I'm sure you've seen is it the Friendship Oak? over
Yeah,
in
the
Long
one
Beach?
USN.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. man.
Massive.
Yeah.
I was just by that a couple months ago, and I'm looking at it the same. I'm from here down my whole life, and I'm like, that's a pretty old
Well,
tree.
when you look at a tree
Literal
that's
giants.
1,000
It is.
years old,
Yeah,
that's
it's mind blowing.
what? 1,000? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still here.
Very, very, very cool. The land in Ocean Springs. Can you mountain bike out there? Ride bikes and stuff?
Oh, yeah,
on
there-
those? They have
Trails
that?
out there.
So through so one of the things that we added recently, we're actually still working on, is there is now a corridor on either side of Park Road that is built for pedestrians and bikes, where you can ride in down there, and it's heavily used by road bikers because it's one of the only spots in Ocean Springs we actually got a decent amount of elevation change there.
Right.
So you got this 2.5 mile stretch from Highway 90 down to where Park Road reaches Robert McGahee, which is the other
Mhm.
road we have in that park. And you'll see those bikers loop through Davis Bayou around the visitor center and loop back up. And we're actually extending that now down all the way to the visitor center and then out towards that area by the campground where the Nature's Way loop is and that deck that's built over that freshwater pond where the gators are. We had very nice boardwalk that connected all that trail basically almost up to Boat Launch Road near the campground down to the visitor center. But that stretch of road coming on Park Road was just a very thin corridor. It wasn't really areas. People would bike on it, but they're biking on the road. So it was presenting a safety concern. So that's new. We widened it. People really love it. But all that nice area that was previously there, that was taken out by Hurricane Zeta.
Yeah.
So we don't have any of that boardwalk anymore. So if you are walking and hiking, you're walking on the road, and a lot of people do. So we still have 2 more phases to go where we're actually going to connect all that. So road biking, mountain biking on the road through the park, just people hiking. Running is a huge activity. We call it passive recreation in the Park Service. People just going out there on their own accord, experiencing the park, running, biking, whatever it is they love to do.
Yeah.
And drive slow because
Yeah.
there's a bunch of turtles in there.
Please drive
a
slow.
bunch of turtles.
I mean, there's so many, and the thing that really I love is we see people, driving, and they'll to see the turtle. It's like pump the brakes, jump out, they pick them up, they drive them to the area. Always take them to the area they're walking towards. They're usually crossing mama turtles the nest, and then baby turtles coming back after they hatch. But people actually help them cross and jump back in their car. They stop for turtles quicker than they stop for people. For sure.
Yeah. You can hit a regular person,
Yeah.
but you got to stop for that turtle.
Yeah.
So that's cool to see that people are really buying in, and just like people, I think ducks and turtles are 2 of the wildlife people just love.
And geese too. They always cross the street.
To me, it's underutilized though, and not as well known as it should be. The parks
a
that
lot
we
of
have.
people don't.
I'm speaking about myself. I don't know a lot of the answers to the stuff that we're talking about today, especially with just the one on Highway 90 right there in Ocean Springs.
Yeah.
I've been down there a few times,
It's
but not enough. It is beautiful, but not enough. So I'm glad to have you come in here this evening and talk to us with it. I'd like to do like kind of what we do similar with the DMR and have you or anybody that in your organization come back and talk to us anytime y'all have something going on.
Yeah, well, we went down there with Mr. JL when
Yes.
they did the fishing with the kids. You'll have that fishing pier down there, and that's where you had that tournament.
Yeah, we worked very closely with JL. They do all the work. JL and Jack, that's a Jackson County initiative. JL is really the driver behind that. I mean, they're a great guy. I love that man.
Yeah.
And we benefited from it just by giving them a spot to be able to do it.
Right.
And I just learned so much from him and be able to watch how he works with the kids. And then that's free. He does a fishing rodeo for them, and they get like certificates, and he puts it online. And yeah, that's a really cool thing. So stuff like that, letting partners come in and and help us out and provide activities like that is really, really awesome.
That's your visitor center, that pier that they fish on. Is that public? Can I go down there and fish off of it anytime I want to?
Yeah, as an adult, you just have to have Mississippi saltwater license. If you're under 16, you don't have to have the license. And then there's a senior for residents, I believe, if you're a senior.
Yeah.
Mississippi residents, you don't have to have the license as well.
Yeah, I like it.
Free of charge. And yeah, I'd love to come on and talk about our upcoming events. We usually have a couple pretty big events out in October. We did a candlelight tour event of the Fort Massachusetts last year that was wildly popular. Took everybody out at night.
We need to go out there and film it for y'all.
Yes,
I'd
we'd love to.
come
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That was my favorite thing we did. We had everybody dressing up in the historic attire. You went through, they had scripts, they were playing these characters. And it was kind of, we did it around Halloween because with the candlelight and with the old characters, it kind of had that spooky vibe.
Yeah.
But it was purely educational. It was just to teach people about the really significant figures that occupied Ship Island during that period.
We're in.
Please come and film it. Or at least
in.
just come and see it.
We're in. We're going to film it. Yeah.
That'd be great. That really would be. Man, thanks for stopping by this evening. Like I said, you got our contact. Please keep us in the loop. I mean, even if it's just a text message about what you got going on, we'll share it out. But definitely want to have you come back. October is one of our favorite months.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, he was born in that month, kind of ruins it. But
witching babies.
It's a great.
We're witching babies.
It's a great month. But we would love to be a part of anything y'all have going on. I mean, that's right in our wheelhouse, right here promoting, the Gulf Coast, especially in our area. So thank you for everything that you do and your passion for it, man. I love to see that. It means a lot, to see somebody that's as in tune with what you're doing as you are.
Yeah, y'all likewise. It was really awesome talking to y'all. I love just getting that out there. This is just another method for us to get out there and reach people.
Yeah, well, use us.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We'd love to. And again, thanks for having me. This is really a blast.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So thanks everybody that watched, everybody in the comments below that chimed in. Matt, thank you for your comment as well. We appreciate it, man. We really do. For watching on the live, the replays, and then on the audio as well, we'll have all the links to their Facebook page and everything, and to the events. It's already in the comments. So go check it out. Like Joey and like we were.
You still got 3 or 4 weeks left of summer. Go get on a kayak.
Family friendly too. That's people are always looking for stuff like that doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
It's free.
It's free, yeah. So go check it out. Download the Brownwater Banter app if you haven't already done that. It's free in the App Store and Google Play. And we want to thank Martin Recoil for sponsoring that as well. If y'all keep tuning into these, man, we will keep doing them. We'll see you on the next one.
Later.